Thank you for joining us this evening. So for today's episode, we will be talking about the safety concerns of the COVID-19 vaccine with Dr. Jasmine over here. Let me just introduce you guys to our speaker today and we can start our discussion. So today we have Dr. Jasmine here, who is currently a senior lecturer at the Institute of Biological Sciences at the Faculty of Science at University Malaya. Okay, so Dr. Jasmine has a background in virology and immunology, and she has obtained a Bachelor of Biomedical Science degree and a PhD in virology and immunology. Her current research interests include host pathogen interactions, virus surveillance, and emerging infectious diseases, as well as antiviral studies involving respiratory viruses. So today we will be having Dr. Jasmine to give us some of her knowledge, share some of her knowledge with us on the COVID-19 vaccine, as you know, it's something that everyone has been talking about now that we are drawing closer to getting the first batch of the Pfizer vaccine. So we will be addressing some of the rumors and some of the general concerns of the public in regards to this vaccine. So okay, I guess we shall get into the discussion for today.
Yeah, we shall.
Yep. So like I said just now, there has been a lot of rumors about this COVID-19 vaccine for the past few weeks, all about this Pfizer, and there are people saying like, oh, if you take it, you might die, and things like that. There has also been a lot of reports, like death in clinical trials or elderlies who passed away after taking the vaccine. So is that actually something that we should be concerned about? Is it like uh something that may happen to us?
Okay. First of all, thanks, Jane, for inviting me to be here and also for the very kind introduction. I am by no means an expert, um, but I will share my knowledge in virology and also immunology, being handling viruses for quite some time now. So, with regards to your question, yes, there have been like rumors been circulating on social media, on mass media about, death when receiving vaccines, as well as since the beginning from the clinical trials, right? So there's actually a lot to unpack here because especially for some of us who don't actually read past the headlines, right? There's a concerning and also negative narrative that have appeared, like 15 deaths after coronavirus vaccination, volunteer in vaccine trial dies after COVID-19 vaccine. So all this doom and gloom news. But I think we need to do a lot of fact checking first and really scrutinize all these reports. So I would like to unpack this for a moment, if I can. So for the vaccine trial death, yes, there have been a few deaths reported, like you said before, Pfizer late phase trial. We have seen 6 deaths, and then Sinopharm, we have seen 1 death, Sinovac also 1 death. And but all these deaths actually, if you read all the reports, it actually was not caused um, for a concern because of the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines. The reason being that out of those deaths from the Pfizer vaccine, they have reported actually most of them were from the placebo groups. Okay, those who did not get the vaccine, and only 2 actually died because of getting the vaccine. And these deaths are actually from the older group age bracket, and there's no causal relationship that have been established between getting the vaccine and all these deaths. And also, I would like to highlight something that the social media also have posted that these vaccine manufacturers and vaccine makers actually use deadly placebos in order to manipulate data. But that's actually false and untrue, because throughout all vaccine studies, when we give like placebo or fake viruses, usually they are just like salt water, really safe amount of salt water,
Mm-hmm.
very minute. And actually, all these data and details about the results of the death and also the results of the vaccine trials are actually available online for us to scrutinize. It's just, it takes a bit of effort for us to actually go and look at it, especially for us, other people who are lay person. And also, there are other deaths that have been reported, like you said, in Peru, and also in Brazil. But all these deaths are not related to the vaccine. Most of them are older. They have complications like disease, complications from diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if I can remember correctly, one of them, the death that was registered was because of suicide. So again,
Oh.
there's no actually causal relationship that have been established between vaccine trials and also death related to vaccine. But probably in terms of when, when we get the vaccine also, it's not like right now, there are millions of people that have gotten the vaccine. And we also hear news of severe effects and also death from those people who
Yeah.
actually got the vaccine. But I would like to say that, like all new drugs, the vaccines that have been authorized to protect COVID-19 also come with some safety concerns and also some side effects. And these side effects are not usually fatal and not
Mm-hmm.
usually serious. Okay, sometimes you get, headaches, um, site injection, a bit of painful at the site of injection. So these are very mild to moderate side effects, but severe side effects are super rare.
Mm-hmm.
Deaths are also super rare, and these are usually related to past complications with other underlying diseases.
Mm-hmm. So I
Yeah.
think that a lot of the concern regarding whether the vaccine is safe or not comes from the fact that these vaccines are developed in such a short time frame as compared to how many of the other vaccines took years or even like up to decades to develop. So this one it was developed after the outbreak, which only happened a little less than 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people are worried that since it was developed so quickly, did they do the research well? Did they really test it on enough people? So is there anything that you can share with us in regards to that?
Yep. So I think people always think that something that takes longer are actually better.
Mm.
So in terms of vaccine production, yes, like years and years ago, it takes so long, probably about 25 years to develop just one vaccine. And for this particular COVID vaccine, it takes less than a year to actually get it out and rolled out from from the manufacturing company up to the arms of the recipient. Okay, so we actually do not cut any corners, but what happened is that we cut all the red tapes. So in terms of generating vaccine, there are a lot of phases that are involved. So we have exploratory work, we have preclinical stages. This is the animal testing. Then we have the clinical development, regulatory review, manufacturing, and also quality control.
Mm-hmm.
For the COVID-19 vaccine, we follow all these phases really stringently. But why it takes such a short time is that there are a couple of factors. Number one is that we have unlimited funding. Billions and billions of dollars have been put into developing all these vaccines, regardless of whether it is going to be a successful vaccine or not.
Mm-hmm.
So back in those days, you have to go through all these stages one by one. So if you show, okay, the vaccine is actually good in the lab at benchwork, then we apply for grant and funding for the next stage, for the next stage, and for the next stage.
Mm.
So for right now, we actually do it one shot. So when we, for example, during the clinical development, we have different phases like phase 1, 2, and 3. So rather than waiting for phase 1 to actually finish, we can actually concurrently start phase 2 and at the same time start phase 3 as well, because we have a lot of volunteers. So that leads to the second point. We have a lot of volunteers right now because we are in a pandemic. Everyone is exposed to the virus one way or another. So that makes it easier for us to get test subjects. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas back then, for example, when we are exposed to the first SARS-CoV-1, there's not a lot of participants. And also when we were exposed to MERS-CoV as well, there's not a lot of participants and there's not a lot of funding. And thirdly, the most important part is that the technologies for vaccine development have been developed way before this. So in those years that we are not that we are actually improving our vaccine development, so it's actually a benefit for us right now because we can use those technology to create something that is effective with new techniques,
Mm-hmm.
for example. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So
Yeah.
I guess we don't actually have to worry about the time frame of the vaccine development because it doesn't
No.
directly
Mm.
relate to the quality or the effectiveness of the
Yep.
vaccine.
Yep.
So
Yep.
okay. So I think the other part is, like we've mentioned earlier, that a lot of people are also worried that, what if I take the vaccine and I die? You
Yeah.
know, but from what we've been hearing from the volunteers of the other countries that have been taking the vaccine, the
Mm.
side effects are not that serious. It's maybe some fever, some
Mm.
headache. But as you know, there are also maybe some people who are allergic to the vaccine, which leads to more fatal side effects as a result. So, how
Mm.
can we know whether or not are we allergic to the vaccine?
Oh, okay, okay. That's a very interesting question. So, like you said, there's quite a number of people actually experiencing allergic reaction soon after receiving the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. But again, the risk is super low. I think about 1 in 100,000 people are actually experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
But if obviously if you are vaccinating a lot of people, then you see a lot of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the most at risk of a reaction would be anyone that has allergic uh, that has an allergic reaction to the vaccine's ingredients. Okay, so before getting the vaccine, obviously the healthcare provider will be asking you a set of questions about your past medical records. So you have to go through a very strict screening process at the vaccination site before you are getting vaccinated, and you have to declare all these medical conditions
Mm-hmm.
based on the vaccination screening form lah, obviously. Um, so if to know whether you're going to be having an allergic reaction or not, it's based on your past experiences when you're getting a vaccine, for example, or maybe you have allergic reactions to certain drugs, certain medical products, certain foods, allergens or insect stings. So you have to really write it down, spell it out, and then we can know the risk, or the healthcare provider can know the risk of you developing an allergic reaction when getting the vaccine. But then this allergic reaction is actually easily treated. Okay, so the patients usually after getting the vaccine, they would stay and sit a minimum about 30 minutes at the clinic or at the hospital, and the healthcare provider or the doctors or the nurses would actually monitor you throughout that time to see if you have any allergic reaction. And there's always treatment for it. You either get an epinephrine injection or Benadryl infection, and it's always ready, not just for COVID vaccine, for any kinds of vaccine. So you just have to wait for the reaction, and then it's going to go away within that time frame. Yeah, so just make sure that you know your medical background and you really spell it out in your vaccination screening form later on.
Mm-hmm. So does that mean that there won't be cases where, for example, I got the vaccine and I only get an allergic reaction like maybe like 3 hours after that? It's not possible.
It might, but it may be a mild reaction.
So serious allergies would most likely be reflected immediately.
Yeah, you would see
Mm,
it immediately.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay. So so now that we don't have to worry about, dying from the vaccine, so let's talk about, who are the ones who are suitable to take the vaccine. So of course the normal, healthy adult would be able to take it. But what about pregnant or breastfeeding women? Is it suitable for them? Or what about kids?
Yeah, I think this is a very good concern as well because like I said um, during the clinical trial phases, especially during the clinical development, there are three phases during the clinical development. There's phase one, phase two, and phase three. So during the phase one, usually test the vaccine to a small group of people, and then phase two we expanded it, and the vaccine is given to people who have characteristics similar to those who we intend to give the vaccine to, like certain age groups, certain physical health groups. And then in phase three is when we really expand it and give it to thousands and thousands of people, and we test the efficacy and safety. So during this clinical trials period, it is common that we exclude certain group of individuals such as pregnant women, babies and children because their immune system are actually quite different to the mass population, especially
Mm-hmm.
children because they are developing at different age stages kan. So technically, because of this, there are limited data about the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines for people who are pregnant, breastfeeding, and also babies and children, except for children above 16 and also 18. So they are young adults technically. So until findings are available from clinical trials and additional studies, so there are very limited data. However, studies have shown and we have seen from the cases of COVID-19 infection, not just in Malaysia, in throughout the world, um, pregnant ladies have an increased risk for hospitalization, ICU administration, and also mechanical ventilation. And there are also cases that they may carry the symptoms in a prolonged period of time, even months. So WHO actually recommends for pregnant ladies, especially those who may have a risk of exposure, maybe they work in a healthcare industry, or they are meeting a lot of different people throughout their workplace. So they recommend to take it, but it's not going to be routinely offered, not like an
Mm,
influenza vaccine or whooping cough vaccine, because until now we don't have any like, concrete evidence yet. So maybe in the future we are going to get more data for pregnant ladies. But in terms of children, I know that Moderna and Pfizer are actually having ongoing trials on children below 12 years of age. So if they are currently right now, so if they are successful, maybe in the near future we might get a full pediatric vaccine in the future, and we can actually vaccinate the children and babies perhaps.
so at this point of time, because of the lack of data, it would be safer to not use the vaccine on children yet. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So they are not a priority to be taking the vaccine yet. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And also for pregnant ladies, I think it's up to them whether they want to take it. So they have to discuss it with their family doctor, and will probably weigh the risk and also the benefits of getting the vaccine.
I see. All right. Okay. That's interesting to know. Because we kind of thought that if a vaccine come, it's like the thing that will save everybody. So everybody is supposed to get it. But I
Yeah,
guess
like
it
a
is not the
silver
case.
bullet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right. We have quite a bit of people joining us at the live right now. So thank you
All
guys
right.
for joining us. Yeah, and today we have Dr. Jasmine here, and she is sharing her expertise with us on the COVID-19 vaccine. So if you have any questions, please do leave your comments below, and we will attend to your question as soon as we can. So, all right, let's move on to talk about this vaccine. So now that we know that we don't have to worry about, the allergies or, dying and all that.
Mm-mm.
So, of course, the world is still spinning like normal, even though
Yes.
COVID has happened. So that means that, aside from COVID, there's still a lot of other diseases out there.
Mm-mm.
So, you know, when taking the COVID-19 vaccine, is it okay, to take it with vaccines for other kind of diseases? For example, hepatitis B or the HPV vaccine, is it
Mm.
safe to take it together?
Yes, most definitely, yes. So it is recommended to take all your necessary shots, your annual shots. Like I've taken my flu vaccine, but if you want to take it, during like a near time frame, so you have to wait. I think about 2 weeks after getting like one vaccine. Say you are getting HPV vaccine, so you have to wait about 2 weeks or 14 days before getting COVID-19 vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get, eventually we get the COVID-19 vaccine, we have to fully wait for about a month before we get a new kind of vaccine, another vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
say against HPV or influenza virus. And as usual, before getting vaccinated, they will check for your current health condition, whether you're feverish or you have some certain symptoms of infection. Definitely you're not going to get vaccinated. So you have to wait until you clear that infection, then come back to take any kind of vaccines, whether it's COVID-19, HPV, or influenza vaccine shots. So yeah, definitely we can.
So since you mentioned, you have to be at a healthy state to take the vaccine.
Mm-mm.
Does that mean like even if you're having like a small cough or like a flu, you're not allowed to take the vaccine?
Yes, you're not allowed because you're at risk of overburdening your body because
Mm,
the vaccine is sort of like a substance that are given to you to induce immune response. So
mm-hmm,
if you're at one point fighting one pathogen and you're also vaccinated against another
mm-hmm.
pathogen, you are definitely going to burden your immune response. So you may not actually produce enough antibodies or enough protection against any of the two pathogens that you're supposed to induce immune response of.
I
So
see.
that's why we have to wait until we clear one infection before we get vaccine.
I see. So just this is a curious question from me personally.
Mm.
So what if
Yeah, no problem.
somebody who maybe has like allergic rhinitis, and are constantly having like a runny nose, it doesn't
Mm-mm.
really go away. So when is the
Mm-mm.
right time for people like this to get a vaccine shot?
Well, allergy is because your body is allergic to histamines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get vaccinated, even during the time that you have an allergic reaction, it's still manageable because you can still give, like I said, EpiPen or Benadryl infection just to reduce the inflammation or the allergic reaction. So you will still be able to amount immune response against the vaccine that are given to you.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is that the infection, the symptoms of the infection that
Mm-hmm.
are more people that are at risk of not amounting enough immune response against COVID, against vaccination.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone is already diagnosed with the
Mm,
COVID-19 infection, that would mean that they have to wait until they fully recover from all the symptoms before they can get vaccinated.
definitely. Yep. Right on.
I see. All right. So um so there are saying that you have a short immunity um right after getting infected with the COVID-19 virus. So like after
Mm-mm.
you recover, you actually have like a short time frame where you are kind of immune. So for people like that, should they actually wait for like a couple more months before they get vaccinated, or is it okay for them to get the vaccine right after they recover from the symptoms?
Yeah. So right after, we are talking about the natural infection.
Yeah.
Yes. So right after they have recovered, showing no signs or symptoms of the infection, they should be getting the vaccine because we want to reduce the severity of infection when they get exposed um, to the virus. And also another thing, even when they get uh, infected naturally, like you said, the immunity does not last so long. So they have a risk of being exposed to probably a high transmissible strain of a virus, and they might not be able to fight the infection robustly, specifically. So when we give the vaccine, so it's sort of working like a booster for the immune response, activating the second part of the immunity so that it becomes more robust, more wholesome, so that they can fight the infection better in the future.
Okay. I guess it's not that like after you recover you are like like you have this free pass to kind of parade
Mm,
around without any vaccination or mask on. So
yeah.
mhm. So I know some people also get the wrong idea that if I get vaccinated I am completely safe and I don't have to wear a mask anymore. Is that
Yeah, I
true?
hear that. Yeah, I hear that a lot as well. Like when you once you get the vaccine, like mask off,
Mm-hmm.
throw away everything, right?
Is that really the case?
Um, Currently it's not, because we need to get a large proportion of people to be vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
So with vaccine, right, what we want is we want to protect not just us, we also want to protect other people as well. And because of vaccination, we slow the spread of the virus so that over time it can drive down the new infection rate and also protect the society as a whole. So realistically, the nature of the pandemic is that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So
Mm-hmm.
until we get about two-thirds and above of our population
Mm-hmm.
to actually be immune, have been given the vaccine, then we can relax the SOP a bit. We can reduce the public health measures only when there's a lot of people have been vaccinated. Until that time actually arrive, it's not as the vaccine now is not a silver bullet where we can just mask off and then
Mm-hmm.
happily go down the street,
Mm-hmm.
convene with a lot of people.
I
No,
see.
it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
So that means, even though the vaccine is technically arriving like in
Mm,
Malaysia this month, and we're gonna start the phases, it doesn't mean that
mm,
once I get vaccinated, then, I am free from all the SOPs and all the
mm,
restrictions.
yeah, no, because you know why? Because the vaccine is actually looking at whether you're going to get the severe form of the disease or not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they didn't look at whether you're going to be protected fully
Mm-hmm.
from the virus, meaning what we call a sterilizing immunity.
Mm-hmm.
So we still don't know. The jury is still out whether the vaccines actually offer sterilizing immunity, means that those who are vaccinated would not get the virus, would
Mm-hmm.
not pass the virus to anyone. So even if you're right now, even if you are vaccinated, you you will be prevented from getting a severe form of the disease, but you may still carry like load of the virus in your nose if your antibodies are not clearing the virus fast enough, but it'll be in a very low amount lah.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be unknowingly transmitting these viruses when you're not wearing any mask, or you are, convening in a closed space with a lot of people who are not being vaccinated. So there's always that small chance that you may be transmitting the disease to others. And also you may be getting the virus from other people even though you're vaccinated, but probably the intensity or the effect of the disease may not be as severe as those who are not vaccinated. So yeah, you don't get a free pass when
Mm-hmm.
you are vaccinated at the moment. Probably when we get a whole lot of people vaccinated, then we can start to streamline the
Mm-hmm.
measures. Obviously, because that's the reason we are getting vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
We are getting vaccine because we want to live like normal before. There's no point having vaccine, but living like what we are, like how we were living a year
Mm-hmm.
before.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
So definitely, it's not gonna be like immediately. It's gonna be in phases, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, from your personal point of view, how long do you think it's gonna take to be able to achieve like vaccination of at least two-thirds of the Malaysian population?
Based on the projection that we have seen, based on the doses that are coming in, and also based on the capacity of the manufacturer to actually produce large amount of vaccines for a lot of other countries, we may be looking at 70% of people getting vaccinated, or 70% of adults being vaccinated next year, middle of the year. That's the best. That's a minimum timeline that we are looking at, but that's not taking account like maybe production halting, or in the US they have weather problems, so that actually impacts vaccine distribution in other areas because we can't get the vaccine out on time, by airplane or by ship or by whatever. So that may hamper the timeline, but tentatively it's going to be middle of next year.
So, if everything goes well, no
Yeah.
delays, ideally it will
Yeah.
be by mid next year.
Ideally, yes.
All right. So, if we are able to achieve that by the middle of next year, I guess we would be able to achieve herd immunity by that point, and it would be pretty safe to, mask off. Is that true by that time?
Yeah. By that time, I think would be true for our community. I mean, for our population.
Mm-hmm.
But to really, to be mask off,
Globally.
living normally,
Mm.
everyone. I mean, it has to include everyone globally as well, because we are
Mm-hmm.
talking about people coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've read, and also there are a lot of data right now that there are different kind of variants of viruses that are circulating. Even in Malaysia now, we have the UK variant 𝗩𝗰𝗰𝗶,
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
and if we are not controlling our borders properly, other variants might also come in. The Brazil variant, or South Africa variant, or even other variant that shows high transmissibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have to keep up with the vaccination, with the immunization and surveillance. Um, so sorry.
Hi. It's okay.
Reality of,
Yeah, so yeah, I think there was some internet connection issue as well. So yeah, glad to have you
I
back
see.
with us.
Yeah, so
So
sorry about
yeah,
that. I
it's
forgot
okay.
about my battery.
It's okay. All right. So do you remember where you left off?
I can't remember. What was it I was talking about?
Oh my. um, I can't really. I got a
Oh,
bit confused.
was it the when we're gonna get 70%,
Oh yeah, like herd immunity and all
and then
that.
whether we can mask off.
Yeah, yeah.
So in order to really do that, we also have to. I think I've stopped at monitoring our borders, and also we have to do active surveillance,
Mm-hmm.
because we want to really see whether um, what are the strains that are obviously circulating, and whether the immunity threshold that are present in the community is actually enough to give protection for people, everyone in the community, not
Mm-hmm.
just those who are protected from the vaccination, but those who actually can't get the vaccine. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really important for us to do that, and also for everyone all around the world to actually get the vaccine as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, that there's the mutation, the UK variant and all that. So we have a question from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So he's asking, since the virus have history to mutate in such a short period of time, will the vaccine, for example, the Pfizer vaccine, boost the immunity to protect against the mutated virus as well?
Okay. So this is actually a very good question, and scientists around the world are actually actively looking at this. And I think this is the only pandemic in the whole world that a lot of people are actually doing the sequencing, and also a lot of people are actually doing studies on all the different kinds of variants that are circulating in different parts of the world. So, um, like all coronaviruses and like all RNA viruses, they will tend to mutate and evolve over time. It means that their genetic blueprint or genome are constantly changing.
Mhm.
And based on the data, the recent data that we have from Pfizer and Moderna, they have said that the vaccine, um, the current vaccine will work against the UK variant, against the South African variant, and also the Brazil variant. And some data suggest that the current vaccine may be less effective against other new strains, such as the highly transmissible South Africa strain. However, they still offer some kind of protection
Mhm.
and against these variants, and maybe in the future other variants, and also for genetic based vaccines like mRNA based vaccine from Pfizer and Moderna. It's easier for them to actually tweak the vaccine a little bit so that it fits the current circulating strain, and then give that vaccine as a booster for those who have actually received vaccine that are protecting them from previous variants. So it's not a
Mhm.
big issue right now
Mhm.
in terms of protection against other variants, because definitely we can modify the current vaccine, and it takes much less time to do it.
Mhm. So it's not like as if, if there's a new variant, it means that the vaccine doesn't work anymore. That's not the case.
That's not the
Mm.
case. Yeah, we still offer the vaccine. Will still offer some kind of limited protection,
Mhm.
because remember the vaccines are protecting against severe diseases. So that's
Mhm.
more important. Severe diseases can lead to mortality, can lead to death. If
Mhm.
the vaccine actually protecting us from that, that is actually good enough,
I
because
see.
there's no drugs, there's no vaccines that are 100% effective, right?
Mhm.
So in terms of a vaccine, as long as it gives 50% and above protection or effectiveness or efficacy,
Mhm.
then it's actually a very good vaccine. And the one that we have is 95%. So that's an
Mhm.
excellent vaccine.
Mhm. I actually also read reports that the government is actually looking into another vaccine, but are concerned because the efficacy data kind of fluctuates between like 52% to like 95%. So, when the vaccine has such a fluctuating efficacy data, does it mean it may not really work for certain people? Or, what are the factors that would influence efficacy?
So there are a lot of factors that can influence efficacy based on the trials that the company actually run, and also the country runs. So it depends on the people who actually receive the vaccine, the age group that receive the vaccine, and whether they have any medical underlying conditions, how many people actually were given the vaccines. I mean, meaning the population of people that were given the vaccine. And also another thing is that the kind of variant that they were testing against. So that actually plays a role as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why sometimes we see fluctuations in
Mm-hmm.
efficacy in different countries because of all these varied results. Um, but it goes back to when the vaccine actually before the vaccine is rolled out. In Malaysia, we have an agency that actually goes through all the regulatory protocols. So
Mm-hmm.
NPRA is involved in that. So they will weigh in all, how the manufacturers actually did the trials, and whether it is the effectiveness is actually better for our population, and whether we can roll it out to the people. So it depends on the country, as the regulatory body of the country as well.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very insightful information for us. So we are actually at a little over 40 minutes. We are at about
Oh,
55 minutes of streaming.
all
So
right.
I think we will start to wrap up. To everyone who's listening, if you have any other question, please do leave them in the comment section below, and we will have maybe last one or two questions before we end today's session.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Jasmine, do you have anything else that you would like to share to the audience in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine?
Get it when you can. Yeah, no, and also I would like to say that maybe may sound like a broken record. We have to keep up with the 3W practices: wash, wear mask, wash hand, wear mask, and also warn, and also avoid the 3 Cs, because this is important when you keep wearing masks, social distancing, practicing great hand hygiene, self-quarantining when you are sick. These efforts not just protect yourself, but it's actually protecting other people's as well. So we are protecting lives in the months ahead, especially when we wait for the vaccine to be distributed to everyone in the community. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to get everyone through the tunnel safely. And also it is our moral responsibility as a citizen to actually listen to factual information and also base our decision making when we have all the evidences laid out. So be the source of trusted and also science-based information. Don't listen to disinformation. Don't because we are also always been bombarded with a lot of information. What I would like to call it like infodemic, but really sift through all this information before making a sound decision, because you need science-based and factual evidences. So I think that's what I would like to push forward to everyone here who is listening.
Yeah. I like the saying, that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, it's been a very difficult past year for everyone because of the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
hopefully this vaccine can really lighten things up, and we can take one step closer to truly being free from this COVID-19.
Yeah, and then we can
Yeah.
have a face-to-face
Yes,
discussion
finally.
rather than battery dying on you.
Yeah, yeah. So so I think there are no other questions from the audience.
All
So
right,
I guess
excellent.
that wraps up today's session. Thank you very much, Dr. Jasmine, for sharing
Thank
your knowledge
you,
with us.
Jane, for
Yep.
having
It's
me.
been a very pleasure to having to speak to you on this vaccine, and I think I really learned a lot. Yep. So
Awesome.
yeah, thank you very much for spending your time with us, and hope to
Yeah,
have you again next time if we have another session on the
sure,
vaccine.
anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Take Panadol with Coca-Cola, or I want to take pills with other different drinks.
I think so far on my own personal side, I never encountered any customers or patients who said that to me. But I think